Welcome to Shareholders of a Better World, brought to you by TBLI Group. At TBLI Group, we have an established reputation as an organization dedicated to building the ecosystem of global sustainability and impact investing. We're doing this through educating, advising, and facilitating transactions in global sustainability and impact business, as well as capital solutions for private companies, family offices, and fund groups. For nearly 25 years, TBLI Group has created a vertically integrated ecosystem of education to action through TBLI conferences and TBLI consulting. More about our company can be found at tbligroup.com. This webinar is brought to you by TBLI Foundation, which hosts educational learning experiences dedicated to a better planet. Through the foundation, we build sustainable communities by sharing the people and the experiences making a difference to so many of our lives around the world. Our weekly podcasts bring impact thought leaders that are doing and not only chatting. Now let me introduce my guest today.
Okay. Good afternoon from our studio in Amsterdam. I'm thrilled to have one of my superheroes who is the epitome of the Swiss Army knife of understanding impact. I think she's got about 16 degrees, 12 PhDs and 6 masters. Anyway, a bunch of, she's definitely overqualified and one of the most brilliant people in the impact space and has been actually growing that significantly. Audrey, thank you so much for doing this. And for those of you that are not familiar with yourself, do you need to have some help in unmuting? Yeah, okay. Let me do that. Okay, Audrey. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, there we go.
Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you for that way over the top introduction. way. And it's a joy as ever to talk to you and to be here with this group. And I'm very happy to share a little bit about the journey of being at the helm of Artha Impact at Riante Capital Zurich. And Artha Impact is essentially the initiative of a single family office that has been directly investing in India since about 2007 or so when I joined them. And our goal has been to deploy basically patient capital at early growth stages, critical junctures, post proof of concept and post pilot, and into kind of deployment of critical product or service into market in India. And to that end, yeah, I'm happy to share some stories and cases and some of the journey.
But I'm curious, you've been doing this a while. How did this all start? How did you convince this successful entrepreneur in London to hire you to develop a better methodology and a shared due diligence? How did that happen? I mean, you were doing some other things, but how did you convince them? It's hard enough getting anybody interested.
I have to say, I was in a very fortunate position. It was just one of those sliding doors moments where an opportunity presents itself and I didn't have to do the convincing. The idea came from the principal of Riante Capital, and Riante Capital was just it didn't exist yet when I joined. And so I was part of the few people who came together to help name it and form it. But the impact piece of it was something that was in the mind of the principal, Tom Singh. Tom Singh is the founder of a UK retail business that's very prominent on UK high streets called New Look. And he already had in mind that he wanted to do something different to transcend what was the typical philanthropy models, which his family already engaged in, and really get into something that was more hands-on, more direct, more interacting with the change-making entrepreneurs who were trying to take ideas that served their communities and bring them to market in for-profit structures. So in that sense, excuse me, it was certainly coming from him. And I just happened to maybe be in the right place at the right time. Thereafter, however, it was 2 years later that, having had a tiny bit of experience, pounding the pavement on the ground, spending quite a lot of time in India, lots and lots and lots of trips, and inefficient ones at that, because someone from the outside coming in, trying to familiarize with the market, you can't run faster than time. You just have to do the walking and the knocking on the doors. And after realizing in those initial 2 years that, oh, wow, we are actually one of many, even though that ecosystem was relatively nascent, and is still quite fragmented despite having become much more concentrated. I had the realization that we have things to do. We must find efficiencies as a community of investors, especially acting in the name of impact. Like, all of us essentially chasing deals, looking for the same, opportunities, of course, in the same places. I mean, my first trips to India were entirely informed by Google searches. I literally Googled Vineet Rai and found Avishkar in its early infancy. And he was kind enough to let me walk in his office. But it was like that the relationships developed. And it was there that I think maybe I was able to do a little bit of convincing that, can we make a contribution, essentially a venture philanthropic contribution to this ecosystem? Can we do more than just deploy these small tickets, which were great in and of themselves, but which weren't going to move the needle in terms of helping these entrepreneurs get the layers of capital and the social capital and the access to the spectrum of investors who are out there. So the platform we built was really for highlighting deal flow and essentially coordinating and sharing due diligence as a process.
But so I said jokingly, you're a Swiss Army knife, but basically you're a fund manager, you're a research provider, you're creating kind of guidelines on sharing due diligence. At the same time, you're trying to change the behavior of other asset owners. So you're doing quite a few different things, but you're focused only on India, correct? Oh, sorry about that. I lost you. There we go. Is that better?
Yeah, sorry about that. I muted because I was going to cough and then I couldn't unmute again. Apologies.
Okay. Sam normally does all this background, but he moved to Hong Kong and it's kind of late over there. So he said, all right, I'll try to do it myself. Next time, Sam will run it much more smoothly.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Yes, the primary role and task is to be an investment manager and to grow a portfolio of direct investments. We have done a few fund investments as well, but the majority in terms of the volume of transactions have been direct. And we have also, in an attempt to be like catalytic and to really take advantage of the fortunate position that I get to be in inside this type of a vehicle, and to be able to use that to knock on the doors of many other family offices, many other social venture funds and foundations and venture philanthropies. So we took on this additional kind of ecosystem building role, and then started to learn just how difficult that is. And so I have such.
What was so difficult? What was the problem?
I think, well, the challenge is that the well-known adage that no one wants to pay for ecosystem building. Nobody wants to,
Tell me about it.
right? I mean, who am I talking to? Foot the bill for the evolution and the strengthening of the commons of the ecosystem of players, because you need connective fabric and tissue like between us to be able to be coordinated and to be able to be efficient. So our tool, our platform, initially built for India, but now as a complete white label available to others for their own specific niches, thematic areas, sectors, places. People use it in Philly, people use it for, Filipino entrepreneurs in different contexts. Now it's there. But where we began, it was really just in the interest of, can we get people together? Can we get to know each other enough and like each other enough to ensure that the lines of communication are open in favor and in support of the entrepreneurs that we find? Because by the time we build a relationship, build trust, invest, they're sure to need more money than what we can provide.
Yeah.
So our goal has always been, okay, I can knock on the money doors on your behalf, but we have to be much more efficient the way we're doing it. And it can't be on manual, because Dunbar's law, we can only remember so many human faces and names at any given point in time in our human brains. So hence the idea of technological interventions to help us be a little more efficient. And fortunately, we're in a really interesting place today on the tech front, just as an industry.
But who uses your platform? I mean, describe the average person who's using it. Is it an institutional investor? Is it a philanthropic? Is it a high net worth, a next gen? Is it a religious institution?
Well, it could be any of the above. I think it's really more about the mindset of the investment manager, the mindset and the proclivity of that individual to look outwards and to be collaborative. And we all say that, and we all, in our hearts and with good intentions, probably would like to be collaborative. But on Monday mornings, when we hit our inboxes and see the tidal waves, and then work on our individual transactions, it's awfully hard to know, okay, is this the right moment to share information? Can I share this term sheet with this person who, I met at this event, who's likely to have a closer look? So I think the people that are using it largely will be like us, in the sense that relatively small, not massive tickets, relatively patient and impact focused, although it's a mixed bag, as we all know, Robert. There's a lot of mission and impact language embedded in a lot of narratives, but that doesn't necessarily come through in our behaviors and actions. And so really, it's for those who seek efficiencies and who are seeking syndication, co-investment, and who realize, especially if you're deploying smaller tickets, you're going to need our exits, if any, and we've had a few, but our exits are a function of our network. This stuff is not going to be IPOing anytime soon on some stock exchange. These types of businesses, like, let's call a spade, in most cases, and I might be wrong, may I be wrong? It would be wonderful to be completely wrong, but our ability to exercise the social capital we have and to be able to support these businesses, we start with a couple $100K as a ticket. A couple of years later, we want these businesses raising at least $1 million or $2 million, and maybe they're already there. A couple of years after that, they've got to be at 8 to 10 million. They've got, for scaling, we're trying to filter and select models that can scale with mission embedded, but then that big money has to come from others. And so that's the goal and purpose of being able to create a little bit of the funnel in a place that's kind of easy to search and pretty.
I have a mountain of questions, which I'll try to take a couple of mine and then I'll take from the audience. So does Tom Singh put pressure saying, hey, Audrey, you've been doing this a while. When am I going to get some returns from this? Is there pressure on you to perform financially?
In terms of the performance of the businesses, the direct equity investments that we've made, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
We have a target IRR of 8%.
Okay.
In what is a highly illiquid portfolio of businesses. We did a ton of very early small ticket investing, which frankly hasn't been very successful. Very few of those have been able to exit us or have been able to scale. We also have learned a lot in terms of discerning which businesses are being led by really well-intentioned mission-driven entrepreneurs who kind of seek to like lead a lifestyle business, but who aren't going to be the ones to get out there and scale big time across the country. And let's be also very fair, India is a very hard place. It's so huge and it's extremely complex, and there are a lot of challenges. So all this to say, there is a financial pressure. However, on the platform side of this, because we built the platform just as a venture philanthropic contribution to our ecosystem, to our peer investors, and the Artha Impact India system it has, a couple hundred deals in a pipeline, and we have about 180 investors like us profiled. It's sometimes active and sometimes not so active, sometimes dynamic and sometimes not so dynamic. But then we decided to think about, can we walk the talk? Can we make the platform itself a sustainable and revenue generating proposition for the family office, who was generous enough to finance it? And to that end, we ended up developing it as a software as a service for others to use. But again, to be clear, the goal is to propagate a very accessible, very affordable solution for anyone who cares deeply about, it could be oceans, it could be indigenous communities who need, access to finance. It could be entrepreneurs, artisan entrepreneurs and smallhold producers in East Africa. Whatever your topic is, it's a place that you can then aggregate that pipeline and convene around it the community of care and practice that is there. It's often there. The thing is, we're usually operating in little clusters of active 8, 10 people here and there, 20, 30 people here and there. And so again, back to the ecosystem builders, the real ones like yourself, Robert, those who are spending decades cultivating those relationships to bring together an army of positive intention and hopefully action. Nobody wants to fund that, and it's very hard to kind of deliver on the mandate to produce a financial return.
No, it's funny that you mentioned that, because this week I was talking to a gentleman. He was a really big shot. I mean, he was the founder of PE for the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. So he managed a lot of money. And he was helping this group in the UK, and there was one woman over there. I said, yeah, I know Robert, but he's still doing the same thing for 25 years. And I thought that was the best compliment I ever got, sticking with the course, because it's really hard, to monetize building these ecosystems. In your case, you're saying that people who are investing in Africa, Latin America, who are very impact driven, they can use your model and your due diligence, even though they're not investing in India.
Yes, but I guess the important distinction to make here is that the design and intention here is not to centralize and to be prescriptive and to say everybody needs to use our methodology and our due diligence templates and our approach. I think that's why all the platform builders in the impact and mission, industry have struggled so much. Why hundreds of technical tech platforms have come up and folded, and many of them, and this is empirically supported as well, many of them don't make money. We did a huge survey and tons of interviews sponsored by the Bertelsmann Foundation 3 years ago to just understand exactly this, like what's going on with the infrastructure building here. Because in the banking industry in the 90s, because there were such sweeteners at the end of various journeys, they figured it out. There was fee sharing, there was a whole logic that governed why interoperability across technical systems and banking systems should work. When it comes to what we're doing, because it's a little more blurry, shall we say, and there are many different kinds of intentions at the table, and a very big fear, legitimately, of for those who are especially unpracticed in blended structures and coming in and starting to really understand how one kind of money can be really tactically catalytic for the next kind of money. All of these points as they've come up, I think, well, point to a huge amount of learning, and also unearthing of, like, again, really, really great, well-intentioned people along the way. But I find it, I find it challenging, simply because these systems, the value is at the edges of these networks, not at a center. That's why, like, every time another person shows up and says, I will be the one that federates you all,
Yeah, right.
it's usually a he, forgive me for saying it, but it's
No,
usually
no.
he who's saying that. It never works. And it never works because the value of the social capital, the knowledge, the savvy, is at the edges. It is in the small accelerator in Uganda. It is in the network of, small self-help groups of women in Karnataka. And so those who convene, curate, and cultivate those groups, they have to have a clear incentive to share information. And they're not going to come into some globally modulated, centralized system and give everything in and then not know what's in it for them. That's why I think a multi-tenant distributed architecture that allows people to aggregate those they trust and know in their place.
Yeah.
So it's the city of Denver, maybe, and there's 40 people there who kind of know each other and who are looking at local businesses. Like, that's a great use case. Those are the kinds of, I think, clusters and design that are going to work. And the DD, and that's the last thing I'll say on this, is it's going to be their own approaches. We can offer templates and say, hey, if you're asking gender lens questions, here's the 45 things you might want to ask. Then they can look at it and maybe use some of it. They're going to have their own secret sauce and magic to apply. So everything has to be their own. It has to be customizable. All we're doing is creating a facilitative structure to enable that sharing, and with discretion in a closed space, which is not open domain.
No, that is absolutely brilliant and needed, because if you historically look at all of the impact investing platforms or investing platforms, all failed. Gate Global Impact, Mission Markets, and many others, because a lot of asset owners and investors want Yenta or Audrey, the matchmaker, the trusted person, to do that. When we built a kind of Tinder for impact investing, different type of happy ending, and we onboarded about, I don't know, 6,000 of the 20,000 investment allocators. And we were going to open it up so you can use it and find other family offices interested according to what you're interested. Nobody wanted it. They say, Robert, just give me a list, send me an Excel sheet. So the fact that you're understanding that dynamism of how it doesn't work, and that people need trusted interview, and you're providing that's brilliant. And hopefully they use it and actually invest.
That's the goal. I mean, I think it's important as well to come down to follow the money and come down to the dollars and cents, right? And so we want them to invest, but this is not a transactional platform where money is flowing through the system. Neither are we incentivized by a brokerage model or success fee, which, if we were, would change our regulatory standing, our status and standing in most jurisdictions. Our goal is just to make it easy to find your peers, use tools that help you get a little more efficiency in your diligence process. And if you've done the diligence and you've done it on a remote business, 12-hour drive from Bhubaneswar in the state of Orissa, and you took the trouble to go there to look at a post, harvest processing turmeric unit, and you've done your due diligence, you've done your homework, you've got your notes, you've got your field notes, and you're putting in X, or you're not putting in X, whatever. You've done all that work. I mean, is it really skin off our backs to be able to make that information available to others? Provided as well that, this is a positivist lens. We want people to share things positively. We don't want to doom a business just because they had a bad visit from a gringo, to be able to then, to have to spend all their time basically trying to fight a negative impression and a due diligence exercise. It's just for really those who are willing to share something that they've done, and surely to tap into their peers when additional or other ancillary types of capital are required. Like every business we've invested in India as an equity investor requires working capital and debt. And we can't deploy that debt. We are external capital to the country, and we're not, we don't own an NBFC. So where's that going to come from? It has to come from our community of peers. So I think I went off on a tangent, Robert.
No, that's fine. I want to take one of Rona's points here, if I can read it well, my eyes get worse at the end of the day. Would be amazing to have a more simplistic and generic confidential form that at the back end can see to the AI intelligent match donors to create an open door, and it's to say that the same thing across to many platforms are designed to be bespoke per donor, etc. Does your system provide that?
So right now, what we've been, and this is admittedly quite new because we've only really come into the conversation with about AI in a practical way in the last 4 months. And what we're looking to do is be able to use AI generated content to help auto-populate to a limited extent some of the key fields in pre-due diligence forms. The thing is, as we all know, as I think many of us would still agree, and this will change soon, but you still need a human eye to do a good review of what it is that is coming up. And anecdotally, I'll share one thing. It was really interesting. We met a Scandinavian-based artificial intelligence business that was doing massive, I would say, auto-generated analyses of companies. And they asked us to run a trial with them. And I purposely asked them to run a trial on 2 sanitary napkin businesses in India that I know of. One I know very well because I'm an investor in. We are an investor in. And another I know of because it has had a number of intrinsic problems and issues related to, X or Y domain. I won't say, just in the interest of discretion. The AI generated profiles were all beautiful. I got all the stuff that was, available on the public domain, the management teams, the history, etc. It didn't pick up what was one of the most critical problems inside the other company that I know of because of just market, just intel. And so I think all this to say, Rona, I think this is it's such an important topic. I'm not sure. I mean, and I've only just started using the latest version of ChatGPT, so I'm not an expert. I'm not sure yet that even when we integrate some of the that sort of generative content that is necessarily going to solve for all of this from a profile building and diligence perspective. And I don't know what the other side of the point. I'm just rereading what you wrote as well, without having to say the same things across so many platforms. Well, that part, that's what we're trying to solve. So we were part of a group of 5 organizations at various conferences over the last 6 years trying to launch this social data commons. We called it SODA, just to be cutesy. And we were trying to create universal enterprise profiles. Our friends at Our Malaria have also been working on this. The issue is exactly that these poor entrepreneurs are being asked to create, 60 profiles across this network, this platform, this Google form. It's a lot of work. We have to have an ability to take that data stub that contains their core profile and allow for data liquidity. There's got to be a way for that information to travel with consistency and coherence. So we are still far from having solved this issue. It's not for lack of interest in interoperability. I think on the back of the research we did, that's 3 years old, the vast majority of platforms were interested in this question of, can we share the data? The problem is the business model. Everybody monetizes differently. And the trade between the systems, the hundreds of systems, has to be negotiated on a bilateral basis every single time, unless we create kind of a really coherent language of data commons for this type of mission-driven business. And that requires leadership. And the leadership and the messenger, I think, is what has been difficult to find.
Jacob wanted to know, how do you inspire more to participate in the ecosystem or your ecosystem? Is it more about finding people and organizations that are already more abundance-minded, or how do you make it in their own best interest to share their due diligence on the platform?
So we learned really quickly that the words share and due diligence don't go together so much in most people's most people's logic. And I had a number of guys, and girls from the private equity industry and from VC backgrounds tell me that, that doesn't really make sense, doesn't work. We don't do that. I will say, I think we started with a much lower hanging kind of proposition, and it was just like, we do a lot of, and Robert knows this very well because it's like a super informal breakfast network that's been running for 15 years. We started gathering monthly in our London boardroom, and we decided to do this every month. We've done it. It's been 16 years now, actually.
Wow.
My colleague, Deborah Keller, heads Impact for Breakfast, and it is the most low touch solution we could find to the basics of just building ecosystem, which is code for make new friends, meet who's out there, have a coffee with them, like them, keep in touch with them. That's it. We're not asking you to come in and open your jacket and share your wares. And so the due diligence share is not a call to the campfire where everybody's singing Kumbaya and we all have to hold hands. Absolutely not. It is a very, it's at the discretion of the individual, and he or she will only do so, or they will only do so in the instance where they're working with trusted people, and they will create a due diligence deal room space, and they'll invite in not the whole network, but 2 people. And that's it. And that's already more than we can ask for. All we're saying is if you're doing that work and it costs so much, especially if it's emerging market SME finance, which is expensive and nobody wants to do it anyway, or they do it only because they're running massive credit portfolios, etc. Let's create a way for people to just get to know each other. So Impact for Breakfast is our kind of offline physical gathering thing, and it costs nothing. It is in 34 cities right now. About 3,700 people in the network, although every time we have to adhere and refresh our GDPR status, we're going to probably lose another 1,000 people, but okay. What we're trying to do is just make sure that people find each other. And then when they know each other and like this space enough, they come to TBLI and get serious. Then they can come in and actually get into the depth of content and become members of all kind, then it's the next level of engagement and interaction. So that's how we're trying to inspire more people to participate.
Do you, Jacob is in Utah, of all places. So do you have any Impact for Breakfast in Utah?
Not yet, but
so Jacob, you're going to start one next week, right? Because they don't have anything there.
There's a conference in Park City in June, which I'm coming to, and it'd be awfully nice to see a little chapter born somewhere in the state.
Okay, and so getting these individuals, I agree with you. People don't like to share. Forget about due diligence; they don't like to share anything. I started hoovering every single strategy consultant that was connected to me on LinkedIn because they kept asking me, hey, let's catch up and, share notes. And translation, you fill up my wheelbarrow and I will leave no crumbs for anyone else. So I just kind of started removing all of those and just turning everyone down, because most people think they're losing something by sharing. So you're already kind of pre-filtering on the more purpose-driven. But I also meet a lot of asset owners, next gen asset owners who talk a lot about, impact, sustainability, blah, blah, blah. And then when you actually show them where they can actually put their money, they don't, it's a small group that are serious. There's a lot that are curious. Don't you find that frustrating? For me, I don't care if someone doesn't want to do it. I'm used to working with the Donald Trump types of convincing that type of individual. And fortunately, they're very predictable because the financial sector is just a bunch of alpha males that run up the cliff and off the cliff, or run up the hill and off the cliff at the same time. But it can be frustrating because you've been doing this quite a while. She might look like she's 18, but she's a little bit older. So how do you keep the faith and the energy going?
Well, I mean, Robert, I have, people who inspire me like you, who keep going and who keep the faith
Yeah, but you
despite.
have to carry you have to carry the stone up the hill.
Well, essentially, we have fortunately been able to become part of, and I say this with huge respect for our peer investors. Like, we're part of a group. There's a number of others who are out there with their sleeves rolled up,
Mm.
in the trenches, and genuinely trying to identify great models, great people. It's about the people first and foremost. And a lot of these entrepreneurs who are sacrificing so much, including their mental health in
Yeah.
many cases, um, the relationships that are built with them, I see it happening on so many levels where there's deep friendship and unconditional kind of love and support.
Mm.
This, I think, and I don't want to go into another kind of a tangent on faith and spirituality, but I truly believe it's got to be part of your settings and your whatever constitutes your foundations of faith. Like, why are we here? What are we doing this for? We are here to help our fellow, our neighbors and our fellow man and woman. And I think, I don't know, I've seen great examples. I've also seen bad behavior. That's not to say that I have a Pollyanna lens on all of this. I've seen some exceedingly bad behavior in certain instances, but like Ajita Shah from Frontier Markets, who just, I don't know, some of you may know her. She is an Indian entrepreneur who runs an incredibly powerful model, a network model based on women, 20,000 women called Sahalis. We were her first investors. She grew the business, had to evolve, had a massive pivot last year. After raising millions of dollars, she had to
Wow.
come in and say, our model as it is not going to work. I need a couple of $100,000 to be able to try to pivot. And it was not good news. It was not good news for any of us, especially, and we were one of her earliest investors. We're today her biggest investor. And all I could say to her was, I believe in you. We're in it this far. We're not going to pull any carpets out from under you. And she said, I might, option one is to close, to fold. And I was like, no freaking way. No, this is your life's work. So we're doing this. And so, she just has yesterday been awarded the Schwab Foundation Award at the fancy Davos conference. And I'm not saying that this is a done deal and the journey's, check, we're done. Far from it. But it's just, you see other people around you that are rallying. We have these peer investors. We've had Beyond Capital. We've had Anshi. We've had all these groups also come in and support her over the years. That's what gives me the faith, even when there's a lot of trepidation, a lot of hoeing and humming, and not that much action. It's getting better.
But what you did is so, I mean, beyond unusual, because the business plan, it's never follows the business plan. It's always
Never.
worse or better. So when it's better, any investor, even the Donald Trump, they're fine. They're getting their returns and you won't hear from them. It's when it doesn't go according to plan and there's a huge bump in the road, which you just experienced with one of your your portfolio companies. And then you said, no, let's grab the shovel and let's fix this. And unfortunately, not enough investors do that. And I know they have to report to their LPs. I get that. But even though most of our work is raising money and mobilizing capital, I tell everybody, if you can do it without raising money, do it, because it's a lot of work chasing down money. And unfortunately, most people don't respond. Everyone is busy being busy. So you have to keep chasing and chasing and chasing. And now they're not like you. They don't always bring something.
But so Robert, I was looking at who's on our call today. I see Farah Karim from Insan.
Yeah.
You know, Farah, you and I have sat down and we've done a bunch of things together. Yes, there's a lot of people who are way too busy and they may not take the time and the pause and the reflection. And to be sure and to be clear, a small initiative like the one I'm involved with at Artha Impact, we are in a place of privilege. We are not out there battling for LPs. We're not, it's a difference. We're competing in terms of, the tech landscape a little bit, but it's nowhere near, what I think a lot of other people have to deal with in terms of running GPs. But I just see so many amazing instances of cooperative behavior, the desire to keep in touch, to have the links, to have the communication. We always find each other. And it does take a little bit of time, I think, just to cultivate the friendships that so many of us here in this virtual room have, right? I see Jillian too, by the way. It takes time, but I don't know, maybe I'm just, I don't know, overly optimistic, Robert.
No. I mean, you're realistic. You've created something that's working, a bunch of different things that are working, that are changing mindsets, creating a tribe, getting people together, that they're not crazy. There's other people, and we can help you do it in a professional manner. So no, not at all. I think because I kind of followed Groucho Marx's rule of thumb, which is I will never join any organization that would have me as a member. So, and I don't have external shareholders, so we can shout our barbaric yawp. And I maybe I get a bit more frustrated, not so much that people are not, doing, but they certainly are talking a lot. There's a lot of chatter, and it's very hard, particularly for entrepreneur startups, whether emerging market or not, to filter out that noise. They'll see a press release. Oh, APG is going to be doing an impact fund for India. Oh, great. I'm going to go over there and see them. And they'll talk to you for a year and a half and tell you after a year and a half, sorry, the investment committee said no, when they were never going to invest anyway. So filtering out the noise is a challenge. And still keeping a positive focus that it is getting brighter.
Yeah, we've seen this. We've seen our entrepreneurs go through this, and we've seen this for ourselves. There is a lot of noise. After you do a stretch of the conferencing and you step into, you go to SOCAP and then the GIN and then, the whatever, any of the other networks. There's an unbelievable heightened level of interest. There's a very compelling narrative that's emerging through all of these various efforts to develop and deploy content through various networks. So people are getting attracted to this and they're coming in, and so they're likely to be saying all kinds of things that they may not necessarily be ready to back up with action. But I think the key is to maintain a focus on practice and to investors coming up. I mean, I understand, of course, first-time GPs, they have to build up, they have to create the narrative, they have to attract people. But as soon as you're past that phase, I really think, it's about focus on the portfolios. What has gone on inside your portfolios? What exits are being achieved? Which models have been scalable and which ones have failed? Because there's so much learning on the back of that, of the failure as well. And I think, 100 doors are going to close, but one's going to open. And I do think like small clustered gatherings like this, having one mutual note of, trust, who can then, anyone you say, Robert, that any of us should talk to, any of us would immediately say yes. Of course, if you know that person, then he's my friend or she's my friend. So I think in these are the small, I think, opportunities. And I think these are the small points of light as we all navigate what is a sea of noise.
Yeah, it's I would say where we were when we started 25, 26 years ago, there's improvement, but I often feel that we're going slower in the wrong direction, and that's the progress here. So no, but I hear you, and I really admire what you're doing and what many other individuals are doing. But at the same time, I had a fascinating experience in India. It's the first time I went to speak in India. I was invited at an Impact Summit in Delhi. And there was a lot of people. It was from the Impact Summit organization. And this is the first time in 26 years that I've ever had such a connection with the audience shouting my barbaric yawp. The DFIs on the panel were not too crazy about me because no one likes to hear that their children are ugly. But everyone you came up to, I was just, shocked. I wasn't so used to it because also having done events in China and that where people are always looking over their shoulder, who's watching. In India, it was every outspoken, great sense of humor, clear, passionate, serious. Hopefully, they'll actually do what they say. But a lot of great social entrepreneurs there, and that were able to resonate. So I agree. There are a lot of, there's a lot of heroes. There's no angels, but there's a lot of heroes, out there. How can this group that's listening now and will, make the replay available for everyone because about 75 people had signed up for it. How can we help you? You, Audrey, not Rianta, you.
Thank you for asking. And my goal is to, I think, ask for feedback, honest, unvarnished feedback about what it is that we've been doing. I get a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's nice, that." I'd love for it to be hard hitting. I'd love to be able to show, the tech platform and the architecture we've built. It's discovery and due diligence. I'd love for someone to say, you know what, this is totally over-engineered. That feedback would be gold dust for us because we would then be able to pivot, adapt, and adjust. And certainly in any scenario where there are deal pipelines, clusters of entrepreneurs that are under supported in terms of social capital, under supported in terms of access to people, that's where we want to try to be able to use tech to capture what it is they're doing and then connect them. So, the way we've priced it, the way we've structured it, it's all been to make it super accessible. So one thing is that feedback. The other thing is, if you're interested in India and you feel like looking at deal flow, boy, do we have deals for you. But that's for entrepreneurs because we're invested in a whole bunch of them. We've done the work. We're happy to share. There's a great sanitary napkin business. India's only compostable, biodegradable sanitary napkin made out of fruit fibers that's coming up. and we've been invested for 10 years, and now it's about to pop because now they got production units vertically integrated. So anyway, I could go on for a long time on those companies themselves, but those are the two ways that I would ask for help. And I'm just grateful to know you, Robert, and to be in your wider circle and to be able to share some of this with TBLI.
Well, I might have a perfect person to praise or rip apart your system. I had invited him to this, Julio is the guy that will kill any deal. He's the guy in a big organization that will find the skeletons in the closet. His previous work was he worked for an Italian bank that managed the portfolio of the Catholic Church, and his job was to rationalize the real estate portfolio. So I mean, and he's always very good at finding what's not working. So I'll make sure that he connects with you, and he's incredibly generous. One of the most kind, generous people that I know. Good friend. So I'll make sure that he takes a look. But is access to your platform, is that just a social service, or do people pay for a membership? How do they get onto it?
So there's a number of instances of it running in different models. So we have an India system, and I can let you into an India system so you could see, I could show you that version. There's a Philippines version, or a Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia has a version. There's networks of family offices that use it, but only for their members. So
Right.
it's not something that, unless one wanted to actually set one up for their own niche city target sector or favorite SCG, it's not an open domain thing. We will maybe create kind of an easier to access global version based on the breakfasts. Because everybody brings deal flow to those breakfasts. So we're thinking
sure.
maybe we put something there. So I would need, it's an extra step of contacting me and me walking you through or sharing a link to a demo.
So there's no web URL you can put as a kind of, come start here, and then we can direct you in the right direction.
I have demo links that I'm always happy to share, like YouTube and the voiceover. You'll recognize the voice on it.
No, I was just thinking to put in the chat area a kind of entry point that that everyone can reach out. Brona, does it cost to set up a unique ecosystem so we could test and review that way?
We can set up beta pilot versions of this and run free trials for it's usually a period of 2 months. And so those systems tend to be unpopulated, so we'd have to give you kind of some dummy populated content in there so that there's something to play with.
Right.
The system isn't very friendly if it's not populated, even with dummy stuff. So happy to share information, but all of that technical stuff, I'd be very happy to provide detail in written form online
and you don't have any issue because you're not selling shares in companies, correct? So you don't need any regulatory compliance stuff.
No, we are just a tech software as a service, and we license the tool to those who are curators or running networks or who really care about one or another issue or city. And then they own it, they own that data in it, and it's their responsibility how they monetize it.
And what one specific ask do you have that you want to really get accomplished this year that I can help you with? I don't know about the audience, but that I can help you with, apart from getting Ruben free.
Oh yeah, of course, there's that. Our goal this year, we did a very intensive deep dive last year on product development to make this a better tool. This year, it's all about biz dev. We want to, again, get feedback from users and see the system propagated, even in the smallest ways, but really to in support of any cluster of entrepreneurs that needs visibility and an ability to be found. And not everybody's going to make it to the conferences. So we want to position this as the best place to be found for mission investors, for impact investors.
And I think I introduced you to Guneet in Hong Kong, the Indian gentleman from shipping so he's has some big announcement which they've done about doing some significant stuff in India. So I'll make sure that he's very nerdy also. So I'll make sure that he connects with you and tell you what's wrong or what's not right there. And this has been actually a joy for me. I don't know about the people watching, but for me, because in spite of all of the challenges and, a mom, 2 kids, a dog somewhere, a family and extended family, you still find the time to do this and keep the faith and keep the big purpose in sight, which is not always easy. So I admire you really for that, and that you're, really know what the hell you're doing. Because everybody, most people just want to show their membership card to the fitness club but never go, which is what ESG seems to have done. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing. I know that you're really busy, and I appreciate you giving me 60 minutes, and I promise that I would keep it to that. Are there any final important burning questions or asks, Audrey, that you just, oh yeah, I want to ask somebody out there. There's a couple, Seamus, right?
We've met
Okay.
once or twice, I believe.
Yeah, you should get him to use your platform, because he's the perfect candidate for having done that, and they have quite a bit of cash.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just all about the energy in these rooms, and we all kind of help fuel one another and continue to do what we're doing because it's for a greater purpose. So
Yeah, so keep that in mind. If you need anything, which you very rarely ask me for anything, so but you have that kind of get out of jail card free. So let me know if you need anything, and we'll be doing a couple of really very cool events with large asset owners this year and next year. So we can definitely guarantee a very important audience who would love to hear what you're saying. So, Audrey, thank you so much. Don't be shy. Thank you all for coming. It's taped, so it'll be available shortly, and we'll send the replay out to everyone. My best to Geneva, Switzerland, and a big hug to you. And I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Robert. And thank you to all for being here.
Stay well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.